Welcome to About the Facts podcast with Brittane and Mike, a podcast designed to educate, navigate, and empower you to become an advocate for your family, yourself, and your community. We uncover the facts and dive into the issues that prevent people like you and me from thriving. You'll gain the tools and the insights to ask the right questions, challenge the system, and stand up for what's right. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and empowered, because the power to advocate starts with you. Let's get to it.
It's an amazing day, and welcome to the About the Facts podcast. I'm your host, Mike Shelton.
And I am Brittane Grant. And if you are just now tuning in to this episode today, About the Facts podcast is a podcast where we bring in thought leaders, change agents, politicians to just talk about their platforms and what they're going to do in our community. So it's very interview based, and we are excited to have you back.
But we don't only do that. We also are going to be talking about real issues that affect families every day. One of those issues hit really close to home: individual education plans at our schools, ensuring that our parents know exactly how to navigate that system. If you don't have money for an attorney, so often kids are left out of the processes, the benefits they should receive. And so we want to make sure that this podcast really breaks down tape that people often give up on and help them navigate it. So we will be talking about VA benefits, IEPs, and education. We will be talking about those things that impact you, your family, and your community to help you be the best self-advocate that you can be. But like you said, if they're just joining in, they have missed an amazing couple weeks series, a political series where we are introducing Ward 7 Oklahoma City Council candidates to their constituents.
Absolutely. We have interviewed Andrea Holman, Kamal Pennington, and John Pettis Jr. and Masood Hawk. So they are all running for Ward 7 City Council. And so we're excited to see how that race turns out. They've had a forum, which all four candidates did amazing, just bringing the information to the community. So we've got a couple of different dates that are coming up. They've got some debates coming up. They've got some more forums. So please stay tuned. We'll list some of those dates on our platform so that you stay educated and you can come and tune in to listen to what they're...
But if you missed it, they can still see those
absolutely.
episodes.
So on all of our social media platforms, we're on Spotify, YouTube. So go back and listen to those videos, because they are really talking about the information and what they want to see in their community and their platform.
And those debates are so important to attend. We think that it is so important for everybody to really tune in to the politics that are happening. There's a lot of people checked out of politics these days. Of course, November, like I've said before, November was a very emotional election for people, and people have thrown their hands up, said, I'm not voting anymore. They've turned off their TVs and all that, but this is when we need to be doubling down. I tell people that all the time. And so that's why we felt like it was important to ensure that the different elections that are happening on February 11th are brought to you by All About the Facts podcast. Just to let you know, there's multiple elections throughout the Oklahoma area, but we are focusing on three main elections, and that's Ward 7 Oklahoma City Council race, County Commissioner District 1 race, as well as Oklahoma School Board Chair race. And they're so important because this is really where the business is done. This is really the stuff that impacts your family day to day.
Absolutely. So we're just excited to have you, for us to continue to educate and navigate, and so you can be your own advocate.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on. I'm sure you've received feedback like I have about the podcast. Good feedback.
Great feedback. So we've got a lot of views on all of the candidates' episodes. So they really want to hear what the candidates are going to do, what they envision for the community, and how they're going to be impacting our community. So, my my background is economic development. So anytime anybody says economic impact and how are we going to do economic development? Schools, that's our IEPs, that's our roads and bridges infrastructure. So it's our workforce development. It's bringing jobs here. It's creating, opportunities for our community. So it's really important that you guys understand and listen to what their platforms
These are the elected officials that you can touch on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And do it. Please reach out to them.
Absolutely. They really do work for the people, and they should be working for the people. But if you don't call them, they will not call. They will not. They won't answer. And you need to be very consistent. I'm always for an email, but I can tell you there's nothing like showing up in an office. They really stand up.
Did they show up at your office?
Hell yeah, they did. All the time. And I'm telling you, they and although my office was responsive, it is a different type of response when those people are going to show up in the office.
Absolutely.
But we got a lot going on, not only here in Oklahoma, but across the country, where President Trump has been inaugurated, and on the inside, which was odd. I realized it's more frequent than I thought it was, so I didn't think that I thought he was just being against the grain once again, but President Trump is getting inaugurated. He was inaugurated. It was inside the rotunda of the Capitol. And so, for those that have checked out, it's important that you continue to stay connected. But we not only on that same day he was inaugurated on January 20th, it was Martin Luther King celebration. And let me just ask you quickly, Britt, there's a lot of movement on history and how people are viewing history, or should it be taught? Should we continue to push Martin Luther King? What does it mean to you?
Absolutely. I think we have to address history because that is how we learn from mistakes. That's how we move forward. That's how we understand different cultures and community and what it means to celebrate someone, a huge giant in all of our communities, and the strides that he made for our people, for the community in general. So,
and if you've tuned in, or if you need to tune in to those past episodes, those candidates not only give their perspective, but they will tell you specifically how to get in touch with them during this election time. It's important to get tuned in right now. So, hey, there's somebody at the door. Let's see, who do we have? We have Councilwoman Sara Bana is in the house. Welcome. Have a seat. This is Councilwoman Sara Bana. We are honored to have you on All About the Facts podcast.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you both for creating a safe space for dialogue, critical dialogue. And I heard you talk a little bit about the inaugurations coming up, and our local government institutions are what we have left to serve as a buffer during this Trump presidency. And so everyone needs to stay engaged and attuned.
Absolutely.
And activate and mobilize.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and then why you decided to run for county commissioner for District 1.
So I am a first generation American. I moved to this country when I was about 9-10 years old. English is my second language. I didn't have the right to vote till approximately 10 years ago. So talking about Dr. King and his struggle, the civil rights movement. And I know firsthand what it means to be a second or third class citizen in this country. And unfortunately, that's a reality for so many people, including undocumented people, individuals who have a felony on their background, and we've got to create more equity, right? Because if those who are most marginalized in this country don't have a right to vote, right, they have no equal and equitable representation. I'm a civil and human rights advocate. Dr. King is an icon, a global icon, I would argue. He's literally propelled America to be the democracy that we are. Prior to his movement, this was not the land of the free, right? We couldn't even legitimately recognize this country as a democracy, right? So he was a gift to America.
For women too.
For women too.
Poor whites. I mean, the list is everybody.
Yes. I would argue.
Absolutely.
Right? And what he taught us is literally being copied all across the globe to this day. And his thoughts were so far beyond his time, and I would argue even beyond our time as we currently live through this time and space. So civil and human rights is what I do, public interest work. I do government anti-corruption work, which kind of, ruffles the feathers a little bit. But somebody's got to do it. This state is extremely corrupt, and that is why we have some of the lowest quality of life in the nation, and arguably in some of the Western democratic nations across the world on a global level. Years ago, some of my favorite presidents, Lincoln, Kennedy, Carter, President Obama. And so during the Obama years, I was extremely inspired. I've been civically engaged since I was 16, even though I couldn't vote. I was really inspired by his grassroots community organizing. And so I took what I knew as far as civics and maneuvering government institutions and bureaucracies and started assisting individuals that are marginalized in our community, people who were being systematically failed by government institutions and sometimes nonprofits, assisting them with their getting access to mental health, applying for Social Security services, housing services, folks trapped in the criminal justice grips of the criminal justice system. Started working with the juveniles that are literally first and foremost victims and then ended up in the criminal justice system. So I founded a grassroots organization called Civic Services Community Advocacy. We do not charge anyone any money. Folks that are in crisis and need access to benefits or services reach out to us. We help them. And through that effort, believe it or not, we have good people. People who are affected by receiving support will then turn around from what they've learned and were willing to volunteer through our group and assist other individuals. That resulted, I came across a lot of violence, y'all, in that work, whether people were victims or survivors of domestic violence, gang violence, all sorts of police brutality, all of it. So we recognized the necessity to create a citizens coalition called Ending Violence Everywhere, which was predominantly focused on reducing the rate and the culture of violence, which is so predominant in our state and in our culture. Then that work resulted, we recognized the police brutality piece of it, right? Whether you're a victim of crime and you're calling police and you're not getting the adequate response, or whether you're in a mental health crisis and the cops are showing up and they don't have crisis intervention, you end up getting your head bashed to the ground, right? So then Eve co-founded the Police and Community Trust Initiative, and I had the privilege of serving as the vice chair. And the whole effort around that was police accountability, but we also worked on building trust. But if police aren't accountable, we, the community, can't trust them, right? And that effort was years long. It's still active. What we did is de-escalation training, rewriting policies, emotional intelligence training, as well as the body cameras that you see on Oklahoma City Police Department. We were very instrumental in those, worked with Midwest City Police and law enforcement agencies everywhere. Because now that we have body cameras, we can at least hold the officers. Yeah, because before that, it was our word against theirs, and they always got the better end of that. And most recently, over the last 7 years, I've been an active member of the People's Council for Justice Reform, particularly involved around the deadly corruption at our county government that has resulted in 54 preventable deaths in that unconstitutional dungeon of death and torture. Regularly attend the Board of County Commissioners meetings as well as the jail trust meetings. And unfortunately, I'm wearing orange out of respect for those who are incarcerated today. There was a death at the jail just last night, a 37-year-old man, and you ought to look at his mugshot. I mean, his side of the face looks like he may have just been brutalized by police. So we need to make sure we're getting the body camera on that to see what he experienced. A nonviolent offender ends up dying there, and unfortunately, they bring him out of his cell. He's dead. Leave him on the grounds of the cell. And unfortunately, we got some images. And so all these detainees are seeing this imagery and this reality. And of course, they're telling them to shut up, be quiet. And so very traumatic time for those who are currently housed at the facilities. Oh, I should also mention I have a new title. I'm a mother to a 7-month-old. And to all the wonderful moms out there, I seek your guidance, advice, and prayers.
It is absolutely a lot that you do, but you sit on a Midwest City Council.
Yes,
and that's very important. And you're running for Oklahoma County Commissioner. Yes. So I just wanted you to just talk about the area in Midwest City that you serve.
Ward 5, the northeast section of the city, which had literally been neglected for nearly 2-3 decades. I would say it's been generational neglect. And I have my reasonings of what appears to me to be systemic. It's one of the areas that is predominantly minority populated. And so as they invested in other areas, they weren't uplifting our part of the community. A resilient community as well. I've been there for 18 years, as a matter of fact, but I'm proud to say in my short tenure, we were able to attract 2 large companies into that ward, American Glass and Centralium Protein, that are going to be creating over 400 good paying jobs.
Awesome.
Yes. With that comes the coffee shops and the gas stations and all the other things we need. But we also need to invest in local mom and pop businesses, right? People who've been there, who've lived there, and give the same types of benefits we give to corporations to those who've been there and are part of our existing community.
And that area, just so people know, is kind of south of Spencer
Yes.
area.
Okay, so it's a beautiful area. So it's almost like everywhere. Some people don't know where they live, right? Because on the north, we border Spencer. On the east, we border Nakoma Park. On the west, we border Oklahoma City. A lot of folks, when I tell them you're in Midwest City, they're like, "Are you sure?"
So what I want to do is make sure we get to plenty of questions because we got 45 minutes, but we're excited. Just want to talk about Martin Luther King just real quick. You gave a lot of perspective on him already, but I know that there's a lot of people playing with, should we teach different types of history? They're playing with, what do they call it? I forget the name of the, where they're trying to censor what our history books are saying, race theory, critical race theory. Yes, all those things are happening. Of course, we're the home of Claire Looper. I'm just asking, should we be continuing to ensure that we are celebrating Martin Luther King holiday like we have always done for many years?
Absolutely. I think history is a critical part of where we've been, who we are as a people, and where we're headed. And I would even argue further, we need to teach kids beyond just teaching them the history in form of a theory, but to help them practice. And I would say nonviolent protest. We need to really bring up our kids in a culture where they see injustice and they're the ones that stand up to that injustice. And I will tell you, I get a lot of heat from this Representative Shelton. I'm a protester. I am. I protested on the front lines against, during the Trump era's anti-Trump policies. I was at Fort Sill when they were building up the camps to separate children from their families for the undocumented. I was there in the forefront of the post-murder of George Floyd protests. I actually investigated the Benny Edwards murder as well as Stavian Rodriguez, the 15. I mean, there were young people. I mean, the courage. You didn't see politicians there. You didn't see pastors there. You didn't see business owners there. What you saw was young minority kids on the forefront. And some of them ended up getting persecuted to the fullest extent of the law as a result of it. But, and I've been called unprofessional. You know, for some reason, if you're in public office or you're a leader, you should, refrain from raising the level a little bit. But and you said...
And I feel like they're overcritical on women and minorities that decide to speak against the system.
And I love Clara Looper. I mean, those images of her being arrested. I don't see a woman that is smiling or sorry. She's angry. She's outraged, and rightfully so. And so we really got to groom our kids to be those types of leaders, or we're not going to see change. And look at it. These Republicans, they have no shame. They almost had an entire insurrection at the Capitol, and all we are doing is peacefully protesting, and then they want to point a finger at us and act like we're the criminals in this situation. So we got to fight for our rights. And Dr. King taught us that in the most graceful fashion that anybody has, but do not fear from protests. Yeah.
Absolutely. So District 1 is so vast.
Yes.
Talk about its boundaries. Just let our listeners know what falls inside of District 1.
So District 1 is very vast, and I was told the terrain is rough, so don't try to canvass it, but I did. So we have 9 municipalities, lots of unincorporated areas, and some towns there, and they keep gerrymandering the area, of course. And so it's a funny mix of places that you wouldn't even think would fall into a jurisdiction, but they do. You've got the city of the village, you've got parts of the northwest Oklahoma City as well as the northeast Oklahoma City area. You've got Midwest City, Dell City, Spencer, Nakoma Park, the city of Jones, and as I stated, some unincorporated areas. And then you've got areas that are out of the territory of a city that fall within the district. With it is a lot of diversity. The communities are unique, right? The big metropolitans, their needs are different. The smaller communities, their needs are different. The cultures are different, right? And their political experiences are also different. Mm-hmm. So what I made it my mission to knock as many doors as I could, because that puts you in those communities visually, seeing what it looks like, but also hearing directly from those who've lived there what their concerns and hopes for their future is.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. It's so important that people know if they're in that district. If you don't know where you live, you can call Oklahoma County Election Board at 413-1515 to get all the elected officials that may serve your specific area. So just to let you know that number again, 405-713-1515. Now, you may not know this, and I'm bragging a bit. Because I served under a great County Commissioner, Jim Roth.
Yeah.
He was an amazing county commissioner. So I'm going to say he was the best. Okay, that office ran very good. And
I've been told Willa Johnson.
Well, I know, but I didn't work for Willa. I worked for Jim Roth. But we endorsed. I left his office to run for the House of Representatives, but Oklahoma County District 1 is very complex.
Yes.
You can find yourself in trouble very easily in that government. One of the biggest government scandals in the United States history happened right here in Oklahoma because of county commissioners. Yeah. We don't want to do that, but very complex office. Why should people care? And can you give some of the duties, but why should they care at the same time?
So I'm sure your viewers watch the nightly news. The only county government that is making the evening news almost every other night is the Oklahoma County Commissioners. Because we've been in crisis, because the corruption has been so rampant that it has literally resulted in death. From somebody who comes from a third world country, corruption can be deadly. And in this case, we've had 54 individuals perish unnecessarily in that unconstitutional county jail. So in regards to what the county government does, the county government, what they do is very compatible with what a municipal government does, right? They oversee the budget, the annual budget. They have to approve it. They put out the bids that the county is going to looking for services and contracts, and then they also have to approve those bids and the contracts. They oversee some of the county properties, including some of the major ones that your audience will definitely recognize are the county courthouse, the jail, as well as the juvenile justice center. They also incorporate towns, the newer towns that want to join the county or form. Also, they have to maintain the unincorporated areas within, as far as roads and bridges go. What they can do is collaborations and cooperations with the municipality. For example, the city of Midwest City will sometimes reach out to them and say, we need to work on this road. They'll pay for the goods. We can use the county resources like their equipment. They'll do the labor, and a lot of times we'll have to pay back for the labor that is performed. Other things, they call the county bond elections as well. So those are some of the major things that the county commissioners do. There are a lot of different elected officials in the county, like the clerk and all those that have different duties. Now, as far as some of the issues that I think, aside from the jail, which I think every person who considers themselves to be a humanitarian or a believer in civil rights should be concerned about, this is currently they're talking about increasing property taxes and or adding a first time ever county sales tax that would have no sunset in order to fund a larger $1 billion jail. So as far as taxation, it's definitely going to affect them. As far as roads and bridges, if you live in Oklahoma, you know we have some of the roughest roads and bridges that we have.
Rough roads.
Yes, yeah. But I would argue human rights is on the ballot, mental health is on the ballot. I would argue criminal justice reform is on the ballot, the unconstitutional jail is on the ballot, property taxes and county sales tax is on the ballot, roads and bridges are on the ballot. In that one election alone, those are some of the prime issues that folks need to get informed on and be prepared to mobilize to boots.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and you're kind of taking on the terrain of District 1, what are you hearing on the doors, and how is campaign going for you?
So what I'm hearing on the doors is a lot of frustration. People know that there's been absolute incompetence. If you are residents in the city of Del City, you're fully aware of the corruption. You've been there. And people a lot of times get offended by that language, that vocabulary, corruption. What is corruption? Corruption is deceit. Corruption is abuse of power, right? Corruption is promoting your personal interest, right, over the interest of the general public, right? And a lot of folks who are in tune with county government will recognize that we've experienced those things from our county commission in the last couple of years, right? So frustration is one, wanting the desire for reform. I will tell you, the further east that you live, the frustration actually increases, mainly because they haven't had adequate representation in those parts of the area. The focus has always been Oklahoma City. And here's a lot of environmental injustice happening, right? They take our money. They build nice things in Edmond and other areas, and then they dump what they don't want into our backyards. And we got to get that right. We got to fight for what's our right and redirect more dollars and protect our communities.
A lot of elected officials over the years have, specifically in county government, the money typically follows the votes.
Yeah.
There are fewer votes out in farther northeast, eastern outside part of Oklahoma City area, Oklahoma County area. And so, since it's fewer votes, they get less money. But they're equally as important and depend on county government even more.
Yeah, and then here's another thing that I want people to be really wary of. And I know you know this. You've been in politics a long time, special interests, right? And I'm not just talking about this particular seat. There are special interest groups, and I would even say individuals, who are now in the practice of buying and selling our politicians, folks who want to influence our government's outcomes, whether it's contracts, whether, we want to build a larger jail because we want to diversify our industries, right? And so we want to force that decision, who are investing mass amounts into handpicked candidates with the expectation that they will deliver for that. And that's happening office after office. And so people power has got to overcome that, and we've got to eradicate that practice at our county commissioners. And I believe that is the main contributing factor to why some of the county elected officials historically have been so corrupt. There's no oversight, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Let me, when I opened today, I talked about how November election was very emotional for people. A lot of people saying, I'm not voting. They're putting their head in the sand, trying to ignore what's happening nationally. A lot of people focus has been national and not so much locally. What advice would you give those people that are deciding to stay home on these smaller elections to get back out, double down, to stay active now, regardless of what's going on nationally?
Yeah. So, and please trust me, if you don't listen to anybody else, trust me, I've been at our county government meetings for the past 7 years, meeting after meeting, the county commissioners meetings and the jail trust meetings. And that is one of the critical reasons why I decided to run after becoming a new mother to a 7-month-old. We're at a very critical time in our county's history. We're at a time where we make a decision about the next 40 to 60 years of our county, and particularly around criminal justice, right? What they are proposing, which I've been opposed to from its inception, was building a larger $1 billion jail. We know if they build it bigger, they'll fill it. They'll target the most vulnerable, marginalized community members, okay? And this behavioral health portion of the jail that they're talking about is in violation of what the Department of Justice just found. And I worked with them for nearly 2 years in that investigation where they found the state of Oklahoma's mental health system, county, as well as the city in violation of Title II. What they're saying is we are systematically failing people up front when it comes to access to mental health care and drug and alcohol treatment facilities. And then we are intentionally institutionalizing them, depriving them of their civil rights. And so this behavioral health portion that they've marketed as mental health care, and reality is, in the heartland of America, let's force people through a county jail first and then institutionalize them in a carceral facility under the guise of mental health care. When in reality, what we could be doing is building on economic development, building us a smaller jail intended for violent offenders who we need to keep there until they go through, get access to their due process. Instead, be building community-based, culturally sensitive mental health care, drug and alcohol treatment facilities adequately and equitably. Every municipality should have such a facility in their town. I'm from eastern parts of the county. We don't have a single North Care, Red Rock, or a Hope, right? The expectation for our community members in a state of psychosis with no bus systems is find your way to the heart of Oklahoma City to get help. If not, we'll call the police and they'll beat you and then they'll dump you into the county jail.
No bus service.
No bus service, exactly. And so it's also, so the criminal justice system situation, if we build it bigger, guys, the next, my child and your child will be at risk for what we've just experienced in our generation, and we need to put an end to that and do what we just discussed. And that's been something I've been advocating publicly and actively for 7 years. The folks in power didn't want to do it because they are making money off of the mass incarceration system. So we have got to send people there who will stand up to these thugs, if you will, and redirect the future of our county. The other piece of it is further taxation. The county government has not been good stewards of the money that we have. Our county government has been turned into a personal business to serve the interest of campaign contributors, and that practice has to stop. And so until we can get accountability and full transparency of our budget, there's no reason to give these people more money to serve, their owners and masters. It's disgusting what's happening down there. So those are two of the most critical things. I would argue: mental health, criminal justice, and taxation.
So you talked about budget. So the county budget board is made up of elected official county officers.
Yeah.
So maintaining, roads and bridges and contracts and things. So what would be your perceived priorities of the citizens or the people that you're engaging with, your constituents?
As far as roads and bridges go?
Just the budget. Like where would you like to take that, and what are you kind of hearing?
I love that question. And it may disturb you all a little bit. I hope it does our audience as well. We live in a county that has decided mass incarceration should take priority to economic development, infrastructure, mental health, and everything else that the county has to do. Mass incarceration at county jail is over 40% of our county's budget, being the largest portion, okay? And I'm hearing a lot of rhetoric from my opponents about promises on roads and bridges. There is no money left to go around for roads and bridges at this current time. And so what we have to do is reduce the budget for criminal justice, which means eliminating all non-violent offenders from the county jail. So radically reducing the county jail's population, and therefore radically reducing taxpayer costs, and then redirecting that money on top of the waste that's feeding the campaign contributors and other avenues, and redirecting that towards roads and bridges, and as well as economic development. As I stated, as a Midwest City Council person, I would argue I'm the only candidate that actually has experience and qualifications in building roads and bridges and doing economic development. In the state representative, as a state representative, that's not what you guys did. You passed state budgets, and then you passed laws, right? Going out there and overseeing roads and bridges wasn't part of your duties, I would argue.
Well, we acted like it.
Yeah. That's why they're so bumpy.
That's why I popped a tire 2 weeks ago.
Hey, you could file a tort against wherever you
definitely done.
County commissioners are most widely known for responsibilities for building, repairing, and safeguarding the public roads, bridges, and school and bus routes. What are your qualifications? You kind of already answered this, but what are your qualifications for honoring this duty? And what are your plans for District 1's infrastructure?
We've got to revitalize it. Like I said, our community's been the least, prioritized when it comes to revitalization. And again, I just think we need to cut the budget where it's being wasted and it's being harmful, and redirect that towards that revitalization. As far as the schools, I mean, public education has a place in my heart. I've, through civic services, helped individuals access IEPs, all sorts of making sure people have access to equal education and accessibility as well. So absolutely, I'm committed to that, particularly the smaller towns. What I witnessed, for example, part of my work, we were able to redirect $25 million of the COVID relief money through the People's Council back into the community. They wanted to steal that from the community as well. Is I watched those ARPA funds that were supposed to be equitably distributed to minority communities that were most impacted by the pandemic get robbed from us, right? The city of Spencer should have received anywhere between 1 to 5 million of those dollars. Nakoma Park, Jones, I just met with some of their leaders in the eastern parts of the county. Those guys are broke. Going back to the county budget, the county every year, if you watch and observe their meetings, every year when they come to balance the budget, they have to borrow from one area to make ends meet in order to make, and that's a shame. And these are Republicans who are supposed to be financially conservative and responsible, and they've mismanaged and this private equity stuff they're talking about taking nearly $250 million loans from private equity, which will create 25 to 45 million in interest rates alone, right? So as far as roads and bridges, we literally won't have anything left, you all. They may come and take our properties in order to pay, So, but there are better solutions. I don't want people to think we're hopeless. It's just that we got to redirect, where we're headed. And roads and bridges, that's the core government infrastructure that should be a priority of a county commissioner, not this crazy crap they're all trying to tap their, fingers into. They have no business doing all that. But yeah. I hope that answers.
No, you're doing a great job.
It seems like budget and the new jail is like very hot topic conversations for the county commissioner race. So, in your opinion, where would you like to see the jail be relocated? And what do you think about the mental health facility? I know we talked about it coming on the forefront of before we incarcerate someone or before they go through our justice system, we need to figure out what the foundation is before we put them through that and not on the back end. But give us some insight on where you stand on that.
So, and I'm really proud, and I want to take a little bit of credit, right? The fact that the county jail has been branded the deadliest jail in America is the result of the advocacy work I've been involved in over the last 7 years. Every time there is a death, I help the mothers investigate that death because the county won't explain to them why they died. Mm-hmm. So 54 deaths later, every time that happens, we engage with media who then comes and covers it. And they're now having to follow up with what's going on. And people are hearing about it, right? And so I'm glad that it's become the issue that it is because it's a humanitarian, I would argue the largest humanitarian constitutional crisis in our state as we speak. And it is bewildering to me that no action has been taken. As a matter of fact, our advocacy work resulted in a state multi-county grand jury investigation, which recommended the dissolution of the jail trust, which was created in 2020. And the 54 deaths I talk about happened since 2019 alone, okay? Right. So they were supposed to dissolve. They decided, hey, we can be lawless and continue proceeding the way that we are. So again, and I forgot your question here.
Okay. Where would you like to see the jail located?
Yes. I've always been an advocate that it needs to remain where it's at. Mainly because, I believe we need to build it smaller, right? And it needs to be, and there are mechanisms, and people are like, well, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do with the inmates? We can have that conversation about the strategies and how you do that. But it needs to remain where it's at. It needs to be built smaller, not larger. And the reason it needs to remain where it's at is because it's centrally located in the heart of Oklahoma City, right across from the police headquarters, right across from the municipal courthouse, right across, not within walking distance of the county courthouse, the Version Hub, all the service providers, the shelters, the bus transportation. And I want to also share, I am the advocate who filed an ethics complaint against Commissioner Miles Davidson. That land in Bell City was purchased for 7 times the amount that it was worth from the best friend, in his own words, of one of our county commissioners, right? That's why that location became the prime ideal for them, who had maxed out in campaign contributions to his buddies. So that's the kind of cronyism and corruption that's going on that is resulting in us dumping a jail off-site, right? That's going to cost our county taxpayers more in transporting folks back and forth there. And we are in the process of repeating the same mistakes we made 30 years ago because we are not prioritizing the interests of the folks we plan on incarcerating, but instead prioritizing Miles Davidson's best friend's interests.
So we've had how many CEOs? Just lost another CEO from the jail trust. How many have we had over
Two of them now.
Okay, this is the second one that just resigned.
Yeah.
Would you be in favor? Why or why not? Would you be in favor of the jail trust becoming a financial trust and putting it back up under the sheriff? Or what would you like to see be done?
And what I'd like to see is the jail trust folks being investigated and criminally prosecuted for literally failure to oversight, for criminal neglect. That's what I would like. And I think that, yes, that it needs to go back to the sheriff. I don't even trust these people to do financial oversight because I know why the jail trust was created. It was created by the Greater Chamber of Commerce, who had money interest in this whole situation. People weren't qualified to run a maximum secure facility trying to do that, and it's been the deadliest experience we've had. 10 health department inspections. We failed every one of them since the sheriff's department left. So that's where I stand on that, and I've been advocating for the dissolution of the jail trust. But I want a criminal and we had one in this multi-county state grand jury investigation. But people need to be held accountable. I've seen 10, 12-year-olds being prosecuted for petty theft.
It's crazy.
This is ludicrous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have had an amazing conversation today. So I want you to tell all of our listeners, just tell them share with them about you. Just take a moment, and then why we should vote for you, and then how they can get in contact with you.
Well, you can get in contact with me at 405-537-4955. That's my direct cell. I like to be accessible. I put my number everywhere.
Wow.
I put it on my card everywhere, billboards, because I don't like middlemen. Right. I like people to tell me what's going on versus middlemen. So www.sarabana.com. You can find more information about our priorities, but it also has our link to our Facebook page that you can find. I will tell you all, I'm not running for a job or a title. This is the next step in a cycle, approximately 15 years of my life, revolving around the county jail and the corruption of our county government. I will never sell out the public interest. I have a legacy of standing up and holding government officials and institutions accountable at personal cost, political cost, and financial cost to myself. I'm in it for the people of Oklahoma County. I'm in it for the victims and survivors of that unconstitutional county jail. And I'm the only candidate that has not taken a dime from the special interest groups that are trying to hijack our county government. And I will never relent in fighting for justice at our county government, whether it means protesting, whether it means being arrested to be taken to that unconstitutional county jail myself. I will fight for what is just, for what is right, and I will intervene in that crisis. I do crisis management work, and so I know I'm fully prepared. I oversee the largest municipal jail in Midwest City. We haven't had a single death this last year, and I have a lot of experience reforming police departments and county jails across the state.
Well, you heard it from Sara Bana, direct from her mouth, and we are honored to have you on About the Facts pod. Sara shared with you how to get in contact with her. Yeah. We want you to share this podcast. Brittane, why don't you tell everybody how to keep in touch with us?
We are on YouTube and Spotify right now and all other major platforms. We are excited to get this podcast out. So, Sara, thank you again for joining us today. This has been a great day.
Absolutely. This is an amazing day.
So let's go make the best of it.